Hello and welcome to my channel Lifestyle and Fashion Tea. I have a quick update on the hazing of Caleb Wilson, the Southern University student who was killed by hazing.
Thanks for being here, friends. I'm Elizabeth Ballard. My partner Greg is on assignment. We start with breaking developments from the WAFB I-team. Over the past 2 hours, a second suspect wanted for the hazing death of Southern student Caleb Wilson has been captured with the help of the Middle Louisiana Fugitive Task Force. Kyle Thurman was taken into custody around 3:30 this afternoon at his home in Port Allen. Our sources say he had a deadline to turn himself in over the weekend, and when he did not show, investigators went looking for him today. Meanwhile, when minutes mattered, arrest documents show fraternity members appeared to be in no rush to get help for Southern student Caleb Wilson the night he collapsed after being hit in the chest. Documents show they took time to change his clothes before dropping him off at the hospital. Those details are raising new questions about the timeline of events the night he died. It comes as funeral arrangements have finally been made to remember his young life. Our chief investigator, Chris Nakamoto, is here now with more on what he's learned today. And Chris, it is a lot.
Good evening, Liz. 3 individuals are all facing felony hazing charges. A second suspect, as you just said, Kyle Thurman, is in custody tonight in connection with Wilson's death. The East Baton Rouge Parish Coroner's Office confirmed to WAFB today Wilson's body was released to a funeral home late last week, but tonight the cause and manner of death is still pending further testing. This is exclusive video of 23-year-old Caleb McCrae walking out of the East Baton Rouge Parish Jail late Friday night. It happened hours after Commissioner Keena Kimball set his bond at $100,000. McCrae is charged with the most serious charges tied to the death of Caleb Wilson: criminal hazing and manslaughter, both felonies. Now we've learned frat members from Omega Psi Phi who were gathered at this white warehouse where pledges were taking blows to the chest with boxing gloves appeared to be in no rush to get Wilson medical assistance at the hospital.
Don't have exact timeline that we're ready to release as far as when Caleb first collapsed at this warehouse and then when he arrived at the hospital.
The exact events and how they transpired inside are still murky, but we have a clearer picture of the delay in seeking help for Wilson from arrest documents. Warrants show after Caleb collapsed, the pledges moved to a separate room where leadership attended to Wilson. Wilson was later loaded into a vehicle and transported to BRG Bluebonnet, where he was pronounced dead by medical personnel. It should be noted that Wilson's clothing was changed prior to his arrival at the hospital. It was around 2:40 in the morning when uniformed officers were dispatched to the hospital, where staff advised investigators that males who dropped him off said he collapsed at a Breck Park. That lie unraveled as the I-team reported last week they were never at a park for that unsanctioned hazing ritual and were inside this warehouse instead. Sources say once Wilson collapsed inside the warehouse, he never regained consciousness. Clothes were changed and he was driven to the hospital, all while he was unresponsive. Tonight we've learned in addition to the charges McCrae faces, 2 other individuals are also facing felony criminal hazing charges. And as we said, Thurman was arrested in Port Allen with the help of U.S. Marshal's Office. One other individual, Isaiah Smith, is supposed to turn himself in tomorrow. Smith is the son of Todd Smith, who leased the warehouse where the hazing happened. Southern says all 3 suspects are current students. For the WAFB I-team, I'm Chris Nakamoto. Liz?
All right, such a tough story all the way around, Chris. Thank you. So funeral arrangements have now been set for Caleb Wilson. Friday, Southern University will have a visitation and a candlelight vigil. Times will be announced a little later. A funeral service will follow Saturday in Kenner at Pilgrim Baptist Church. That will happen at 10 o'clock in the morning. We're following some breaking news from...
Yes.
2 starts with breaking news.
That breaking news as we come on the air. A second suspect is in custody in the hazing death of Southern University student Caleb Wilson. Kyle Thurman was picked up by the U.S. Marshal's Task Force just a couple of hours ago in West Baton Rouge Parish. A third suspect, Isaiah Smith, has still not been booked. This, of course, follows the arrest of Caleb McCrae last week. McCrae was booked with manslaughter and criminal hazing charges. Bess Casserly here with these new developments in this fast-moving investigation.
Michael, both Smith and Thurman were supposed to turn themselves in on Friday. That didn't happen, and officers had to go get Thurman. I'm told Smith, however, will turn himself into BRPD tomorrow morning. 3 men facing felony charges in the death of a fraternity pledge have all been identified. Caleb McCrae charged with manslaughter and criminal hazing. Isaiah Smith and Kyle Thurman also facing criminal hazing charges.
When hazing involves a great bodily injury or death, there is a felony component to hazing, and it carries up to 5 years.
According to arrest warrants, McCrae, Smith, and Thurman led the hazing ritual that night at this warehouse leased by Smith's father. Each had a specific number of pledges lined up to punch in the chest 4 times. Witnesses say McCrae was the one who punched Caleb Wilson, causing him to collapse and become unresponsive. The group went to check on Caleb, made the decision to change him out of his clothes and bring him to the hospital 10 to 15 minutes after he collapsed. At no point did anyone call 911.
Initial reports indicated that Caleb Wilson was dropped off at the emergency room by a group of males that stated he collapsed while playing basketball at a brick park located at 3140 North Sherwood Forest Boulevard. All of those subjects left prior to officers' arrival.
It's unclear who came up with that lie, but according to McCrae's attorney,
I'm not sure my client had any part of any communication with any hospital or anything like that, so I can't speak to that.
Now, we've been told that there could be additional charges depending on the results of the full autopsy. Just this morning, the coroner's office told me those results could take several months to come back because of the level of detail in the extra testing that was required on Caleb's body. According to the arrest warrant, the only visible sign of trauma on Caleb was a small bruise, presumably where he was punched. Part of that extensive testing will figure out if Caleb had any pre-existing medical conditions that may have been exacerbated by the punching. Right now, his cause of death is listed as undetermined. Thurman was booked into the West Baton Rouge Parish Jail, where he will be picked up and transferred to Baton Rouge as soon as possible.
Coverage on the case of Southern University student Caleb Wilson, who tragically died during a hazing ritual for Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. One of the main suspects, Caleb McCrae, turned himself in last week, but has since been released on a $100,000 bond. In Friday's press conference, Chief of Police Thomas Morse Jr. stated officers are in the process of obtaining warrants for 2 additional suspects. As of now, there have been no reports of these suspects turning themselves in or any arrests being made.
Okay, so as you have heard, they are still looking for one suspect, and that is the son of the owner of the warehouse. He is supposed to turn himself in. I guess if he doesn't turn himself in, they will go get him as well. I did put up the funeral arrangements for Caleb. So I guess if anybody wanted to send something or anything, or just keep the family in our prayers, let's all do that. And I will do my best to keep you all updated as far as this case goes. And on the way out, guys, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.